Hello, 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 and welcome to episode 67 of Brews Less Traveled, the podcast exploring the best uncharted craft beer scenes across the United States. I'm your host, Brian, happy and humbled to bring you another round of episodes featuring another great Brews Less Traveled city. And this month's city is none other than I couldn't find a nickname for the city. I usually make a nickname joke here and I can't do it. It's none other than Salt Lake City, Utah, as you can see behind us. Hello, streamers, the people joining the live stream, watchers, Beer Club subscribers. How's it going? I'm super, super excited to be joined by my co-host for this month, who knows a thing or two about the SLC beer scene. Please join me in welcoming my good friend, fellow Pittsburgher, and wonderful co-worker, Molly Sutter. Molly, how's it going?
Hey, Brian, going super, super well. Super excited to be part of this here and chat all things Salt Lake.
I am so happy to have you here. I'm so happy we got our technical things figured out there.
Me too. Talk about like down to the wire as well. So, we'll get it done. It might not be the easiest ways, but we'll do it.
Yeah, it's funny. Most of the times we start recording too early, and it's like, oh, we're like waiting to start at 8:30 exactly. And this time we like jumped off right at 8:30. Like, hey, how's it going? We're here.
Something here. I like to make an entrance, Brian. So I think that this really sets the par for the rest of the month.
Yes, it's great to have you, Molly. I know your beer background, but for the listeners at home, do you want to tell us about your background with beer, your relationship with beer?
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to. Actually, was a little late to the whole beer game. I feel like when everyone kind of has those pinnacle college years, slugging down some good old Busch lattes and what have you, I was just kind of wandering around with like the cheap and worst vodka you could possibly find. And luckily enough, I started working at a local bar after school, and it was a craft beer bar, and had about 40 taps, and my entire outlook on beer changed. I realized that there's this whole wide world out there. There's a lot of flavors, a lot of different styles, and really kind of just developed a better relationship, with craft beer from working with those guys. And from there, really just weaseled my way into working with different breweries. And for some reason, they always gave me a job. So really, really thankful for that. And, now here we are. And working with City Brew Tours has really opened up my eyes to the craft brew scene all throughout the country here.
Yeah, you mentioned it there, but you want to tell everybody at home a little bit more about your role with our sister brand, City Brew Tours?
Yeah, absolutely. So with our sister brand, City Brew Tours, I am one of their tour operations coordinators, and just a really fun and fancy way of saying that I get to organize where all of you lovely humans can go and take a tour with us. So I oversee our operations in Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Ohio, Portland, Oregon, and then Salt Lake City. Luckily enough, being able to travel to all of those areas, getting to meet really, really cool people, obviously getting to drink amazing beer, which is awesome. So it's been great so far, doing it now for a year and some change. So excited to see where it keeps going.
Yeah, I definitely asked you to co-host because you run our operations in Salt Lake City, but I also have a well-documented bias for people and things and places related to Pittsburgh. So I'm happy to have another fellow Pittsburgher hosting the show with me for this month. Shout out to all our new Beer Club members joining us for the first time this month. How yin's doing? You make this show happen. Also, big shout out to our marketing team for the awesome Beer Club inclusions this month.
Should we get into it? Just really start chatting about what we're going to drink today. This is part of the reason why I signed on for this, Brian. Here today, guys, to really kick off our Salt Lake month of fun, if you will. We have two beers here from SaltFire Brewing. We have their 10, oh boy, ready for this, 10-ton truck IPA. Then their Dirty Chai Stout as well. So really excited to test these out here.
Two great beers, and we're going to have a good friend and familiar face joining us today. but more on that in a minute. Molly, what do you say we get into this 10-ton truck?
I think that's an excellent idea, Brian. And in the excitement of everything, mine's still in the fridge. You got to give me just about 2 seconds here.
So yeah, fine. Please go. I'll stall here for a second. Hello, everyone at home. I am just happy to be back from vacation. That's a lie. I'm not happy to be back from vacation. I'm happy that vacation went well. I'm happy to be here on the stream with all our lovely, wonderful beer club subscribers, and hello to all the listeners at home or on the road or on a treadmill or wherever you may be listening to our wonderful podcasts. Cheers to you. Like Molly mentioned, we have our 10-ton truck, the first beer that we're featuring from our friends at SaltFire Brewing Company. This is a West Coast style IPA. In the land of New England IPAs and big juicy boys, we have a nice, crisp, classic West Coast IPA. I probably should have said cheers before I sipped that. I had every intention of sipping that and then saying cheers. And that's not how you do a toast. That's just really not good manners of me. So this is tasting wonderful. It's right on the side of the can here. I didn't get it from my research before, but this wonderful West Coast IPA is brewed with CTZ, Amarillo, and Citra hops. For those that don't know, CTZ is kind of a catch-all term for 3 different names for the same type of hop. CTZ stands for Columbus, Tomahawk, and Zeus. And depending on who owns the contract for that, they may call it Columbus, they may call it Tomahawk, they may call it Zeus, and they may call it CTZ. I don't understand the whole branding thing behind that, but it's a wonderful hop. It's one of the most used hops in the brewing industry, and Amarillo and Citra really complement it well. Amarillo is kind of known for a lemony, citrusy character, and then of course Citra is the orange king, or really queen, because hops are female plants that we use in the brewing industry. And Molly is back here to save me from my floundering stalling here.
You were doing a wonderful job. I just really wanted you to keep going, selfishly, was what it was. Or we were having some more technical difficulties, because why not? But I'm very excited to give this guy a whirl. Let's see.
It's tasting wonderful. And in a land of juicy, big New England IPAs, this classic West Coast IPA is just so refreshing.
Yeah, this is what I would go for, like hands down. If I'm drinking an IPA, I want this. But there's definitely I get those juicy tones to it still. If you're a big New England guy, you would still very much enjoy this brew too.
Yeah, there's nice juiciness in the body of the taste, and then there's that crisp, classic, dry West Coast IPA finish that just rounds it out so well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is delicious.
Molly, we kind of buried the lead. We did spoil that you do run our tour operations for City Brew Tours in the wonderful city of Salt Lake City, but you're actually going there next week and are going to be joining us for next week's episode from there. And I just wanted to say a shout out to the local visitors bureau in Utah, because they gave us some maps as part of our beer inclusions. These maps are wonderful. Shows you all the hotspot areas around Utah. Molly, where are you going to go outside of the awesome breweries in Salt Lake City next week?
It's always a question that is on my mind. I don't want to say that I try to schedule meetings and brewery visits to ensure that I can go see some cool places as well, but I definitely do my best. And thank goodness for these maps. I actually discovered, a lot of new places that I didn't know existed, but really the first one that they list on there, the Antelope Island State Park, I think sounds awesome. I've been meaning to do some more kind of sightseeing out there instead of just on the other side of a bar stool. So I think being able to, kind of walk around and see the beautiful mountainscape and some nature is on my list this time for sure.
Molly, I am in love with Salt Lake City. I proposed to my wife just south of there. I had wonderful trips to Salt Lake City. Antelope Island is an absolute highlight of any trip to the state of Utah. For those that don't know, it is the largest population of North American bison left in North America. It's on this island called Antelope Island. It's a state park maintained by the Parks Department of Utah. And when I went there, I had a very large bison, like 20 feet from my little Hyundai Elantra that we rented. And the bison was larger than the car. And I have never been more intimidated by an animal that is so docile. They look docile. I mean, please, listeners, folks at home, don't approach bisons. Keep your distance. They're giant. That's like basically a running truck. And I highly, highly recommend renting a car, driving out there. It's a bit of a drive from downtown, but it's entirely worth it. I love to hear that you brought that up. We didn't plan that at all. That's like literally one of my favorite places in all of Utah. So
yeah, it is literally first on my list. I mean, honestly, second is the Lagoon Amusement Park. So, we're going to have to see how much time I have. Can't mess up the roller coaster. It's spooky season. They may have some frightening activities going on. So that's going to be number 2.
Definitely. Awesome. Love getting into spooky season. Fall is my favorite season of the year. And I alluded to bringing a familiar face on to talk about Salt Lake City and their great beer scene. So let's do it. Last week, he said he didn't know what he was going to be doing for Wednesdays this month. So we went ahead and did him a favor, found him something to do this week. Please join us in welcoming friend of the pod, former co-host, and official Vegemite aficionado, Isaac Bell. How's it going, Isaac?
I gotta unmute myself, but I'm here and I'm just super stoked. Yeah, there's a lot going on. I've been biting my tongue for like the last 10 minutes. Don't pet the buffalo. You alluded to people drinking something called the 10-ton truck while they're on a treadmill. And I want to say to all the people on my treadmills who love the Keller pills, kind of like the East Coast Overcoast. Anyways.
Yeah, big fan of the top button you got going on there. Big fan of you coming on to join us. And great to have you back.
Yeah, great to be back. And Molly, in particular fashion, has already disappeared again.
No, I there couldn't be this much amazingness on one screen. I had to take a break. So
it's good to be back. It's good. I totally unexpected. This was a complete surprise. And yeah, Brian, I'm glad you said Vegemite aficionado as well. Finally, people are realizing my true claims to fame. That's just a subtle shout out to everybody out there. If you don't know, to all our listeners, to everybody that is tuning in, I'm half Australian. I was raised on Vegemite as a wee lad. I can remember spreading Vegemite and butter on toast since the age of at least 2. It's one of my first memories. And I will constantly press Vegemite on anybody and everybody who is willing to listen and try it. And it is absolutely delicious. I recommend that you get out there and give it a shot if you haven't.
I have to add it to the list. I did just for you today, though, Isaac. Let's see if you could see my Anthony Bourdain glass for your meats as well. So, we have all areas covered for you.
Love to see it. Meats and treats.
Right. Ooh, meats and treats. But yeah, since we are here chatting about good old Salt Lake, Isaac also works for the City Brew Tours portion of things here. So why don't you just kind of give us a little breakdown of what the City Brew Tours does?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say it is my sole function as a human being is to literally describe to everybody else and every brewery in America what City Brew Tours actually does. So the long and short of it is we want to introduce you very, very similar to the BLT podcast. We want to introduce you to a beer scene that you may not be a part of and show it to you like you are complete local. So we'll give everything from 3 hours to 5 hour long tours. And people say, 5 hours, that's so long. It goes like this. It's so quick. And we want to do an educational beer tour. So we want to squash that drunk bus mentality, get a lot of bros out there that are drinking their Natty Lights and, having their Bud Lights and their Millers and their Coors, and they're hopping on limos and they're going out and they're getting wasted and having high gravity beers from one stop to the next. We want to squash all of that. We want to give you a full on sensory grain to glass experience of what City Brew Tours actually is and show you how beer is made from, I think I just said it, from grain to glass, from inception to completion. And along the way, we'll do that in the most comprehensive way that we know how. So we'll take a guide that knows absolutely everything about beer and your local beer scene. They're going to choose those beer for you. They're going to show you the right road. They're going to introduce you to styles that you wouldn't have had. You're going to have a beer and food pairing along the way. So you're going to try to have beer with food together. It's going to be absolutely smashing. You're not going to know what hit you. You're going to be astounded by the things that you discover, that you can actually find a beer that pairs with a salad. And then we're going to let you have a little bit of free time and then release you back into the wild from whence you came. And we've been able to do this in 16, almost 17 cities across the United States, including Montreal, Canada. And it's a great way to see a new city. I've taken our tour in just about every single location that we exist in, and I can't recommend it enough. For, you know, a bare minimum of $110, $120. What better way to go to find out, you know, a local beer scene? And RJ just asked, where can we see you? Go to citybrewtours.com. You can literally see every city that we exist in, and you can take the tour. And I'll just plug this right now before you even take it. We have a frequent flyer card. So if you take our tour in one location and then the next, you just have to call in, make that reservation, and we'll book you on the next tour for a little bit of a discount. Essentially, if you take enough of them, they're free. So keep taking City Brew Tours. And yeah, that's what we do. So I talked a little bit longer than I would have liked, but back to you, Molly.
No, that was awesome.
So as Isaac mentioned, City Brew Tours operates in 17 different cities, and Salt Lake City was our second newest CBT location. And funny enough, every person on this podcast, well, all three of us, not everybody in terms of all the listeners and watchers at home, you're all part of this too, but the three of us, Isaac, Molly, and I, all played some role in opening Salt Lake City. So I guess I'll start with Isaac. What kind of work needed to be done to get tours operational there? And if you want to pass it off to Molly at some point, because she played a big role in getting it opened, and I guess then I'll tell my story.
Yeah, hands down, I had the easiest job out of all of you. I'm not going to beat around the bush here. I've got a pretty good life doing what I do. For those of you that don't know, I'm the City Brew Tours business development manager, which literally means somebody has to go and talk to breweries and new locations and convince them that we are, you know, worthwhile to work with. And the proof is in the pudding, as I've already said. We have some great partners all across the United States. Salt Lake City was very, very interesting because it was kind of like a brave new world in opening up what we do out there. So for those of you that are listening at home, or those of you that are tuning into the podcast or our video, Salt Lake City is under a lot of unique laws that are I don't want to say primarily
Cumbersome.
filled by, yeah, they're cumbersome. Without beating around the bush, I think a lot of it is religion related, if not tied to the Latter-day Saints, also known as the Mormons. So when we go into a brewery or a bar or anywhere, even up until just a couple years ago, even about half a decade ago in Salt Lake City, they had something called the Zion Curtain. And that's if you walked into a bar, Brian, and you wanted to order an old fashioned, for example, and we've all done it, right? We've all ordered an old fashioned or a cocktail from a bar.
Whiskey sour.
Or whiskey sour. Yeah, it's the end of the night. You might be in Burlington, Vermont. You're looking to tie one on. Whatever it might be, right? We've all been there before, right? Trying to order a mixed drink or a cocktail. And they literally had to go behind a barrier, a Zion curtain.
Frosted glass.
Little curtain there, and distinguish the difference of being there preparing your drink in front of you and being behind a barrier and preparing that drink. So I want to say Salt Lake City has really come a long way in the beer laws and what they're able to do, and to allow us to operate as well. We always play with inside the law and regulations and whatever we're allowed to do. They have a really interesting law where you can serve beer in your establishment on a draft line, but it can only be up to 5%. So anything over 5%, it's got to come from a bottle or a can, which it really grinds my gears because, you know, if you come into a location and you have to pour a flight, I need to make that happen from a bottle or a can, you're wasting a lot of that. You're pouring 4 different beers out, and at the end of the night, you're either pouring them down the drain or some poor soul is having to drink those beers and not tell anybody about it, and then make their way home. But yeah, Salt Lake presented a unique opportunity with the beverage laws and the way that we operate.
And
what amazing beer.
And like you mentioned, you were the one that went in initially and started those relationships. And then Molly, you came along and got it off the ground, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, definitely couldn't have done it, without Isaac. But like Isaac, we have an awesome job here. So when I came in, it was mainly to ensure that the guides are up to par and enjoying the beer. So same thing, I got to just kind of hang around with some great people and drink some beer. So it was really neat kind of, seeing Salt Lake develop that way. It was the first new city that I was able to go in and help open up as well, not coming into, an already established city. And especially with Salt Lake in particular, as Isaac alluded to, of just being a little bit more unique in the laws that are presented. This was a really fun opportunity, and it was my first time in Salt Lake when we went to open it. So it was absolutely amazing, blew me away, definitely surpassed all expectations. And it was really great just to see the progress of getting this whole city, up and running, and to see it come to fruition now and have some tours going there. So
I appreciate both of your modesty, but you're both full of BS, because you both helped run press tours to help get the word out about us. You ran friends and families tours to show locals and people that have taken our tours before how it goes and get us good reviews on our business. You both trained 3 people in like super crunch time, and you onboarded a lot of awesome breweries. But let's be real. The lion's share of the credit goes to me. No, I'm just no, I can finally talk about this because way back when, those of you that have been BLT subscribers for quite some time remember that we featured Des Moines, Iowa, and Omaha, Nebraska, way back in the late winter and early spring. And how City Brew Tours SLC got a van was that some young gentleman named Brian drove it from Des Moines, Iowa to Salt Lake City, all the way across Wyoming through 65-mile-an-hour gusts on the highway, and eventually made my way to Salt Lake City, where I visited SaltFire and a couple other breweries that we're featuring later this month. And that vehicle is now comfortably running tours on a weekly basis in Salt Lake. And I'm joking. I played a little bit of a role. I can't take the lion's share of the credit. I got the van there. Molly and Isaac did the rest, and now our awesome guides out in Salt Lake City are leading those tours for our awesome guests.
that is true. I mean, it's my personal favorite van. So, really couldn't have done it without you, Brian. It's really all it is.
It is an exceptional van.
It really is.
I also think you're underplaying that, Brian.
It's a long drive.
Because it not only is it a long drive, and the average tour goer will not know this information. So BLT is getting a little sneak preview to sort of what really happens behind the scenes. But I hopped in that van after Brian left it in Salt Lake City for me. It probably sat there for about a month before I was able to get to it. And I will tell you that van had no power steering. And I don't know how long Brian had operated it that way.
Wait, really?
Yeah, I had to get the power steering pump replaced on that. And I actually I
didn't notice.
I got stuck in a drive around Starbucks location. And for those of you that have never been in such a terrifying position as to have been stuck in a Starbucks drive-through in front of thousands of other people in the morning that want their coffee in a 15-passenger van without power steering, but it is absolute chaos. I don't recommend it to anybody. It didn't take long before I was like, I am not driving that van until we take it into a shop. That happened very quickly. But yeah,
my favorite part of the story.
Yeah. I don't know if you knew about that or not, but they know me well at the Starbucks in Salt Lake.
Well, since we have the van there now to bring guests to all these awesome breweries, Isaac, what breweries are we going to in Salt Lake?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are so many breweries that we could go to, and there's so many breweries that we could choose from. And we've gone, in my opinion, and selected some of the most elite breweries that we could possibly work with across the board. So I know that right now tonight, you guys are having some beer from SaltFire Brewing Company, obviously a part of our tours that we have there. Right down the road from them, we work with a company, or a brew house that's one of my personal favorites there called Level Crossing Brewing Company. They're absolutely fantastic. We work with a place called Hopkins Brewing Company, also in like a strip mall, make great beer, do a lot of home brew, almost style things, very local. We work with Bewilder Brewing Company, two guys that owned a homebrew store and then decided to open up their own actual brewery because they saw everybody else around them doing it. Also making delightful, fantastic beer. And then last but not least, we work with one of the powerhouses of the area, Uinta Brewing Company. I'd be remiss to leave them off. And looking to add more. Yeah, absolutely. If anybody is listening, if anybody's in Salt Lake or has Salt Lake connections, we want to be a part of it all. So coming from a guy that definitely goes in and talks to the breweries, if you have any connections or you want to make that happen, we'd love to make them part of the tours. You know, we work with breweries as big as Uinta's, Sam Adams across the board, as small as One Barrel Systems, where you're like, what are you even doing here? But also, I'm going to talk about you for the rest of my life.
Just to pop into the chat really quick, I feel remiss for not mentioning this earlier. Shout out to Pat for pointing out it is National Beer Lovers Day. So cheers to the beer lovers at home. And also, Chad in the chat, that can be difficult to say. Go to Starbucks order, Isaac. I'm guessing you ordered a lot while you were sitting there holding up the line and irritating every caffeine deprived person.
This is probably one of those things where I think Molly and I actually became like real friends, because every morning I was like, Molly, what do you want from Starbucks? I'm going. She was like, I'm jet lagged. And I was like, I'm not. I've been here for a while.
Perfect partnership for me. I got to sleep. I woke up, had a coffee. Like, I'll open any city with Isaac anytime. It was great.
It was good. I was, by the way, just exhausted and tired all the time. I spent most of my time in that Starbucks line with no power steering. My go-to Starbucks order, this will surprise most of you, is probably a skinny vanilla latte. I'd love the taste of fake sugar.
Okay. Molly?
Honestly, I don't want to sound like I'm copying, but 100% same skinny vanilla latte, but with an extra shot of espresso and some almond milk, because I'm a millennial, I have to add some fancy stuff in there, you know.
Okay. Well, I will go complete opposite of fake sugar and everything. I go the largest Americano they have. Some of the places have the Trent tea, which is like the 30 ounce. I will drink that and then annoy everyone around me with my energy, but I'll settle for a venti Americano. Got to get that espresso. So in that fabled journey that I took from Des Moines, Iowa, all the way across the Midwest and into the Mountain Time Zone, into Salt Lake City, I actually stopped at SaltFire. As soon as I dropped off the van, went to SaltFire, and they had a cat hanging out inside the tap room, which I thought was just awesome. Like, yo, what's up, cat? I'm coming here to get some beers. You know, I stuck my fist out. The cat fist bumped me. It was really cool. Molly and Isaac, what's the coolest thing that you've ever seen in a tap room?
I mean, I have 3 cats at home. Like, I'm such a sucker for cats. So the brewery cat at SaltFire, his name is Mr. Zwickle, and he's definitely just a majestic creature. And I think that he's probably the best thing that I have seen in a brewery thus far. There was another great one. Isaac, you're going to have to remind me of the name, but a brewery cat from the former 3 Stars in Washington, D.C., Nigel, yet another amazing brewery cat. So, hardcore shout out to Nigel there.
Yeah, Nigel is pretty fantastic. We've got Harvey as well, which is the Hellbender brewer cat. Mr. Zwickle, I'm enamored with, not because of the fact that, one, he's named Mr. Zwickle. By the way, if anybody's out there and you're interested in this cat, you can go to Instagram. If you're a big Instagrammer, you can follow him at Mr. Zwickle, the SaltFire cat. And
we're just giving plugs for this cat.
I know, and that's the thing. Like, so when I
was listening at this point, we're just talking about a cat at a brewery.
When I opened up SaltFire, Ryan was like, everybody just cares about the cat. Like, they don't give a shit about what we're doing here. It's the cat. He was like, it's Mr. Zwickle, the SaltFire cat. He's got more followers than the actual brewery does. Just follow him, like, tag along, do it. It's fantastic. So Zwickel, for those of you that don't know out there, this is a brilliant name for a cat, and let alone a brewery cat. It's the valve off the side of a fermenter, and it really makes sense when you talk about something called Zwickel beer, if you've ever had one of those before, which translates as it's literally an unfiltered, unpasteurized lager that comes off the side of a fermenter. There's also something called a Keller beer, which I'm sure a lot of you listeners have had as well, which translates to cellar beer, which keeps track with the lager theme, and Mr. Zwickel, the SaltFire cat, as well. It's pretty fantastic. And this cat like recognized me in between, like probably 3 months of being there, and I came back, and I swear to God, that cat knew who I was. He looked into my soul. He was like, yeah, I remember you. You were fun. Yeah, no, that was super interesting. Other than like other places, I've been to a lot of breweries, and it's always the animals that I remember. If you got a cool animal, pinball machines, any kind of gaming is always fun.
Well, now you're just naming like general things that are in
Yeah,
tap
just
rooms.
like every tap
You just
room
like
or
tap
every
rooms.
brewery has. Yeah. I'm like, well, they had giant Jenga and Edison light bulbs and
and a chalkboard menu.
yeah, and a chalkboard menu. Soup of the day was whiskey. Yeah.
Brian, have you seen anything cooler than a brewery cat? What's the craziest thing you've seen?
I mean, I love the slide at New Belgium. That's a very cool thing inside of a brewery. It's not technically inside the tap room, so maybe that doesn't count. Oh, so we've seen giant Jenga and stuff like that, but at a phenomenal brewery in Denver called Bierstadt, they have giant Connect 4. It's like literally life size, like as tall as I'm 6'2". I swear that the Connect 4 thing was almost as tall as me. And that was very cool. Also, Isaac
to match the
we got
giant
boots there.
Yeah,
we got what were they, 2-liter boots of Helles Lager.
All I remember is that was the last time a beer tender or server was unimpressed with me, as they'll probably ever get, because the boots there are so large. They're literally glass, like cowboy boots. And when they give them to you, they take your ID, and you can only get them upstairs.
Like we need collateral,
because they're scared that you're going to steal the boot, which is a valid concern. People
Absolutely.
are trash. I get it. 100%. And I made the joke, like just off the cuff, to the beer tender or server that came in. They said, we're going to need your ID on top of like down deposit. Like I was buying a house on this 2-liter boot. And I was like, oh, these boots were made for walking, which, Brian and I both got a huge chuckle out of. And they were like, we hear that 10 times a night. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, now I'm actually questioning if that giant Connect 4 was 6'2", or if you guys just saw that once you were on the ground.
Big.
I don't know which way. Yeah,
we were toasty. Yeah,
I believe it.
No, it was big. I will vouch. And so was the gigantic boot of a beer.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of toasty, should we get into this other one, the Dirty Chai?
I think we should.
About
this
time.
Beer is literally made with everything and the kitchen sink.
I'm excited.
I even have a special glass for it today.
I love that. Well, you all are pouring.
Can't see the logo on it.
I'll just go ahead and tell you that this was a fan favorite of the guides in Salt Lake City. I didn't have anything to do with this decision. They literally just like saw it on the menu while we were doing some training. Molly can probably attest to this. And they're like, what's that Dirty Chai? Like, that sounds great. Can we give that to them? And I'm like, yeah, it's in the price point. Like, go nuts. And I think that they never stopped. Like, they've just been giving Dirty Chai to all the guests and all the tours.
That is so good. Holy crap. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to pull it up here. So this is a coffee stout that is made with Maris Otter, Crystal 80, chocolate, pale chocolate, special bee, and roasted barley malts. Additionally, it is made with specialty ingredients: lactose, ginger, black pepper, cinnamon, green cardamom, nutmeg, clove, coffee beans, and then your typical yeast, water, and hops. A lot going on in this beer, but it presents as a very like unified thing. It comes together to make a cohesive, amazingly drinkable 7%, 6.7% stout.
Yeah, the drinkability on this is, because I go back and forth on my stouts. I really do. Sometimes they're a bit too heavy for me. But yeah, with this one, you can pull out each and every one of those flavors and I can easily drink another 2 to 5 of these. So this is very good.
Chat is blowing up, loving it. Friend of the pod and producer Laura loves it. Matt, both beers awesome tonight. RJ, wow. Jonathan, amazing aroma. Brian, whoa, complex and amazing. But yeah, this is unbelievable the way this comes together. So this beer has a lot going on. Isaac, you're a home brewer. What's the most ingredients that you've ever put into a beer? And is there a limit?
Yeah, 100%. There is a limit. And I want to give a quick plug for SaltFire. And I know I talked about them earlier. They specialize in high point beer. And we talked a little bit about the rules and the regulations in Salt Lake City. So anything 5% or above needs to come from a bottle or a can, which is where all their beers really reside. So what you're drinking tonight, obviously outside the realm of the 5% or under. So they do have the draft lines that are in the brewery, but they don't utilize them. They're sitting there dead, and they just make this high point beer, which is a part of everything that they do. So when we go there, it's primarily on 5% or above beers, which we don't really focus at anywhere else that we go to in Salt Lake City yet, or at least at this point in time. So that's a really big part of our tours there. Now, speaking as a home brewer, yeah, I do brew a lot. I'm also a little bit of a home buddy, which is the best probably way to describe that. I've been brewing the same beer, the same recipe for the better part of a decade, which I know, love, and understand, and can brew with my eyes closed, which is a cream ale. I found that most people generally will gravitate towards that because it's, there's not a lot of hops in there. It's usually a sweeter beer. There's a huge corn bill as part of that recipe. It's just an easy drinker. So for people that come over, I normally drink Rhine, or I like Bud Light or Coors or whatever, I can give them a cream ale and tell them to shut the hell up and just enjoy it. And usually they will. And they'll be okay. And before I know it, I'm kicking kegs, which is great. I love that problem. Whenever I get into, so I laughed because you asked the question going back to, is there too much? Can you add too much into it? And, sometimes I'm creative, but when I don't know what I'm doing, I always look for some guidelines and some recipes. And usually I refer to the World Wide Web for that, which, as we know, is a very dangerous place for recommendations if you don't know at least a baseline of what you should be looking for. And I found, and I made, and to my embarrassment, an IPA that probably had like 10 different hops in it somewhere along the lines. And looking back now, like it was so expensive. It probably cost me like $100 to make 5 gallons. And I couldn't tell you where those hop varietals came in, like what flavors played in, what bitternesses played in, like where each one really had an effect. It just kind of felt like throwing the kitchen sink into it to make it work. Some of the best IPAs I've had have been 3 hop editions, our classic, triple C, your Centennial, your just ordinary American hops. Like you don't need to get crazy with it.
Yeah.
And if you do, good luck. But like it's kind of the same thing with any kind of hobby or anything that you do. If you make too many changes at the same time or too many adjustments, you don't know really what you're fixing or what you're doing and creating. It's better to start simple and then build your way up. So yeah, to answer your question, absolutely there's a limit.
Let's take a beer break. Back on episode 49 of this show, we talked about Peppy, the fabled monster of Lake Pepin in Minnesota. And you've probably heard of the Loch Ness Monster, but did you know that the Great Salt Lake also has its own fabled lake legend, the North Shore Monster? Reportedly in the summer of 1877, several employees of the Barnes & Co. Salt Works Company reported seeing a large creature with the head of a horse and a crocodile-like body swimming in the Great Salt Lake. The creature made an angry bellowing noise and reportedly charged the workers, causing them to hide in the bushes from the monster until morning. While some say it was probably just a bison in the water, the legend of the North Shore Monster continues to this day. Now, let's get back to the show.
Cool. I haven't stopped thinking about bison since we've started this podcast. So I'm really going to switch gears on everyone here. And now that I will be in Salt Lake next week, thinking about all the beautiful nature I'm going to see, do you guys have a favorite national park or anything additional that I should add to the list, check on out? But But what national parks do you guys like?
Well, I'm gonna be very upfront and admit that I have not seen a lot of national parks, especially on the West Coast, as much as I would have liked to. So Salt Lake City is actually the gateway for so many national parks on that side. But for me personally, I'd love nothing more than to rent like a Jeep or like some sort of teardrop camper or something like an off-road with. I really want to hit Zion National Park. You're not too far away from the Grand Canyon, which is, America's national treasure. You are so close to Grand Teton, the Canyonlands, Bryce Canyon, the Arches, Yellowstone, the Rocky Mountains. Brian is a lot more versed in, I think, the national parks around there. But this is like my wish list of all the places that I want to go. Like,
Well, you've
if I
been to
could
the
take
National Mall. That's a national park.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, that's true. They didn't like that I brought a teardrop camper down there with an F-150. It's frowned upon when you're in Washington, D.C. Don't recommend it. I suggest you stick to an e-bike or a scooter.
That's great.
Ryan, what about you? You have a favorite park?
I'm seeing if my wife was here. So if I don't say the park that I proposed to my wife in Arches National Park, so I'm probably supposed to say
That's
that.
the favorite. Yep.
But the Grand Canyon is like, it takes your breath away when you see it. When you step to the edge there for the first time and you see how expansive and just vast it is. It's unbelievable. Everybody should go to the Grand Canyon once in their life. Pull an April and Andy and steal your mom's car and drive there from Pawnee, Indiana, and make it to the Grand Canyon. In the chat, Chad is asking which rim. I've only been to the South Rim because I've always come from Sedona in Arizona, going north to the Grand Canyon. But if you're in Salt Lake, if you're in Las Vegas, you can make it to the North Rim. It's a bit of a haul from Salt Lake. Arches and Moab, which is the town that's right near Arches and Canyonlands and Bryce Canyon, is about 4 hours south of Salt Lake. And then I think another 4 hours from there is the Grand Canyon. So it's a bit of a haul from Salt Lake, but it is so worth it.
Well, I'll be putting in my formal travel extension request by tomorrow then, specifically, so I can go check that out, check it off the list.
That's great. So we've talked a lot about the beer in Salt Lake City, but let's go around the room here to wrap up. What's something about the city that we each wish was more well known? Isaac?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have an answer right off the bat. My first time in Salt Lake was really during the pinnacle of COVID. And it was almost as it didn't exist out there because there were so many people just clamoring to go to the bars and the restaurants that were outside. It was like stepping into an entirely different scene. Coming from those of you that don't remember, I'm in Washington, D.C. And it was just wild. The bars were packed. The doors were open to every restaurant, like, garage doors or barn doors or anything. They were standing room only. All the tables were filled. The foodie scene there is fantastic. There's this is not my scene, but there's a great vegan scene there, which I found out about from a couple of friends. There is a really cool, we pick up and drop off at Evo Hotel in Salt Lake City, which is this really cool awesome hotel. Yeah, it's a great hotel. It's just a bunch of skater bros and like ski bunnies and people that, that there's literally a skating ramp indoors behind the check-in at the desk there. They sell those $5,000 mountain bikes, behind, and they're like what is the equivalent of an REI. But the food and beer, the beer scene is amazing. So like, even though you can only sell low point beer on draft, so that's anything 5% or below, I think that's really made a lot of brewers become better and what they have to do and really challenge their craft to be able to make beers at such a low ABV or volume.
And I don't think we've said it yet, but that law just changed. It was 3.2 before.
Yeah, that's
it
correct.
Was 3.2 was the max. 3.2 ABV was the max that you could serve on draft. So like they say the comfort range for brewers is in between 4 and 7%. It's like pretty simple to brew good beers and ferment good beers within 4 to 7%. You go above 7 or you go below 4, it becomes very difficult to nail in flavor profiles and
Correct.
get body to the beer. And that's, like you said, that's just a testament to what the SLC breweries have done.
Yeah, let me take back everything that I just told you and say that is what I wish they were more well known for.
You can't. That's a cop out.
No, I do.
The question
I do.
is specifically other than the beer scene.
No, the beer scene. That's it. I want them to be known for the beer scene. That's amazing. Like it really is.
Okay. I won't hold that against you. Molly, your answer.
Yeah, well, obviously agreeing with, everything that Isaac said. And I just truly think that there's something for everyone. The beer and food scene is exploding. Obviously, any sort of winter activity that you would want to do can be found there and plentiful, if you will. But yeah, I mean, you guys mentioned the Evo Hotel. Like in that hotel alone, it's a hotel. They are building a mountain climbing range in the back. They have an indoor skate park. You can literally just walk around. Last time I was there, I walked around for like a good just like 5 miles on a day that like I had nothing going on. And really truly anywhere that you go, there is something for everyone. And then on top of that, I think people alluded to it in the chat here, but you're surrounded by, I mean, just this beautiful landscape that it really is just an awesome place. Blew away all my expectations.
Yeah, it is gorgeous just standing in Salt Lake and looking at the mountains all around you. The thing that impressed me the most about the city, and I think something that definitely makes tourists and travelers feel comfortable, it is far and away the cleanest, most comfortable city I have ever been in. Yeah. My wife and I walked around at 11 o'clock at night down streets with no street lights. There wasn't trash on the street. We felt safe. We felt comfortable. It was beautiful. They have this beautiful outdoor mall right by where we were staying. It is a pristine, beautiful city. And I don't know how many people realize like just how nice of a city it is. And then there's all the things to do. There's skiing, there's mountain biking, there's a hotel with a skate park inside of it and a rock wall behind it, and there's an amazing beer scene. I
thought I was going to spend 5 days there being ready to convert to Mormonism.
Troy in the chat, lots of dinosaur stuff too. If you're a big dinosaur fan like my daughter, you will love Salt Lake City too. I realize that kind of sounds I realize that kind of sounds shitty. Hey, if you like dinosaurs like my toddler, go check out Salt Lake City. Dinosaurs are cool for everyone.
Dinosaurs are awesome.
That's correct.
Let's bring this. Let's right the ship. Before we get out of here, Isaac, one more time, can you tell the folks where they can book a tour with the wonderful City Brew Tours?
Yeah, 100%. So not just for Salt Lake City, but for any of the places that we operate, you can find us at citybrewtours.com. Select a city. You'll see all the 17 places that we operate in. I'd love for you to see us in Salt Lake City, but don't forget, we're in other places all across America. Also, don't forget, we have a frequent flyer card. So if you've taken a tour in any of our other cities, do go ahead and call in that booking, and you will get a discount for every tour that you take until, like I said, eventually they're almost free. Not quite, but close enough. And that's how you can get a tour with us.
Thanks. Great plug. Isaac, thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
Molly, thanks for co-hosting. I am excited to do 3 more episodes with you this month.
I am very excited. This was great. Already looking forward to next week when I will be in Salt Lake. So this will be great.
It's going to be a fun time. And I think the first time we're going to have a co-host or a host joining us from the actual city we are featuring. So we'll get you to like look out the window and be like, hey, look, there's Salt Lake. And we'll give us an in-person description.
Brian, can I do one more plug?
I don't know.
Can I throw one more plug out there?
Yeah,
I'd be remiss
plug,
if I didn't do it.
Plug.
Yeah. I'd be remiss if I didn't do this. So everywhere has a great beer scene. Every place in America right now. You could throw a stone. You can hit a great craft brewery that you love to go to. And I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that City Brew Tours is a franchisable model. So if you want to bring a City Brew Tours to your local town or to your local city or to your location, or maybe even a place that is really beer centric that you care about and you love, you might want to be your own boss. You might want to open up your own City Brew Tours. You can check us out at citybrewtours.com/franchising, and you can also find us there.
And as our good friend Chad is reminding us, you can check out Isaac on Untapped's travel show hosted by our friend Kenny Gold. It's called Next Exit, and Isaac's episode premieres on the 13th. of September.
This month. Yeah.
Podcast listeners.
Next Tuesday.
Yeah, podcast listeners. It came out yesterday. It came out yesterday. Go out and find it.
Yeah.
Great way to kick off our episodes on Salt Lake City. Thank you to SaltFire Brewing for providing awesome beers for this episode. You can find more from them at saltfirebrewing.com. If you want to further support Brews Less Traveled, please consider joining the beer club at Brewvana.com. That's how we keep the lights on here. And you get amazing beers shipped directly to you each month. And then you can also join the stream every week and, heckle me from the chat, drink these beers along with us, and get to enjoy great guests like Isaac and some of the wonderful brewery owners, brewers, and brewery industry folks that we have coming on later this month. We'll be back next week with our next featured Salt Lake City brewery. But until then, stay safe, be kind, and support local breweries. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, guys.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. Thanks for watching Brews Less Traveled on YouTube. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more interviews with brewery professionals.